The crystalline spires of Station Omega-7 stretched across the void like frozen lightning, a monument to the Galactic Consortium's power. Here, in the neutral zone between warring empires, diplomats and warlords alike gathered under an uneasy truce. The station's crown jewel was the Nebula Lounge, where the galaxy's elite dined on delicacies from 1,000 worlds. Elsa wiped down table 17 for the third time, her hand steady despite the knot in her stomach. 3 weeks into her posting, and she still felt like an imposter among the glittering crowd. Humans were relatively new to the galactic stage, barely a century since first contact, and positions like hers were hard-won. She'd studied xenobiology, learned 14 languages, and memorized the dietary requirements of 47 species, just to serve drinks to beings who could vaporize her with a thought. Table 9 requires service, chirped her neural implant. Elsa's pulse quickened. Table 9. Everyone on staff knew what that meant. She smoothed her uniform and approached, her footsteps silent on the gravity-controlled floor. There, beneath a cascade of bioluminescent vines imported from Kepler 442b, sat Warlord Kievan the Unconquered and his wife, Lady Zarathi. Kievan was Valorian, a warrior race that had subjugated 17 systems before the Consortium forced a ceasefire. He stood nearly 8 feet tall, his obsidian skin marked with ritual scars that glowed faintly with residual plasma energy. His 4 arms rested casually on the table, but Elsa knew each hand could crush titanium. He'd earned his title through 300 years of combat, and rumor held he'd never lost a duel. But it wasn't Kievan who made the staff whisper. Lady Zarathi sat across from him, a vision of terrifying elegance. She was Zha-Trakian, from a species that communicated through controlled pheromone emissions and possessed a collective consciousness spanning their entire race. Her translucent skin shifted through colors that corresponded to emotional states, currently a deep violet that meant contentment or possibly digestion. Her 6 limbs moved with fluid grace, each ending in delicate manipulators that could perform molecular-level surgery or tear through armor plating with equal ease. What made Zarathi truly fearsome wasn't her physical capabilities. It was her mind. Zha-Trakians processed information at quantum speeds, their brains literally utilizing entanglement to think in parallel dimensions. She could predict an opponent's moves before they made them, calculate probabilities that would take AI clusters years to compute, and she'd served as her husband's strategic advisor for a century. Together, they were unstoppable. The staff had learned to move carefully around her. Last month, a Centaurian waiter had accidentally brushed against her with a tray. She'd released a pheromone burst that sent him into anaphylactic shock. He survived, but barely. Zarathi had apologized. Apparently it was involuntary, a defense mechanism, but no one had forgotten. "Good evening," Elsa said, her voice steady. "Standard protocol. Maintain eye contact with the dominant party, in this case Kievan, while acknowledging all present. May I offer refreshments?" Kievan's eyes, 3 of them, arranged in a triangle on his face, focused on her. When he spoke, his voice rumbled like tectonic plates shifting. "The usual. My wife will have the crystallized methane tea from Titan, precisely negative 179 degrees Celsius." "Of course, sir." Elsa turned to Zarathi, following protocol. "My lady, shall I prepare it with the standard mineral suspension, or would you prefer?" She stopped. Zarathi's color had shifted to an angry orange, her limbs tensing. Around them, conversation died as other patrons noticed the change. "You dare address me directly?" Zarathi's voice came through a translation device at her throat, but underneath Elsa could smell the pheromones, sharp, acrid, meant to induce fear. "A human servant, barely evolved from your planet's filth, speaking to me as an equal." Elsa's mind raced. She'd followed protocol exactly. What had she? Then she understood. The cultural briefing she'd studied mentioned that Zha-Trakians expected subordinates to address only the highest-ranking individual present. By speaking directly to Zarathi, she'd implied they were of similar status. It was a grave insult. "My deepest apologies, Lady Zarathi," Elsa began, lowering her gaze. "I meant no. Your species barely understands quantum mechanics, yet you serve those who have mastered dimensional travel for millennia." Zarathi rose, her full 7 feet towering over Elsa. The colors across her skin swirled into a furious red. "You should grovel, human, you should." "Excuse me," Elsa interrupted quietly, and the room went silent. Interrupting Lady Zarathi was tantamount to suicide. Even Kievan straightened, his hands moving toward the plasma pistol at his hip. But Elsa had noticed something. During her xenobiology training, she'd written her thesis on Zhatrakian neurochemistry, and right now, Zarathi was displaying a pattern Elsa recognized. "My lady," Elsa said, meeting Zarathi's alien eyes, "your pheromone emissions are showing elevated acetylcholine analogs and decreased serotonin markers. When combined with the color cascade I'm observing, red bleeding into yellow at your extremities, it suggests you're experiencing a thyroid-equivalent malfunction. Specifically, your quantum processing nodes are misfiring." The room held its breath. This can happen when Zhatrakians consume any food containing trace amounts of iron-60 isotopes, Elsa continued, her voice clinical now, falling into the rhythm of her academic training. "It interferes with the entanglement processes in your neural tissue. I noticed you ordered the Andromeden kelp appetizer, grown in soil rich with supernova remnants, very high in iron-60. For most species it's harmless, but for Zhatrakians, it essentially causes temporary neurological instability. You're not thinking clearly right now, my lady. In fact, you're probably experiencing something analogous to human intoxication." Zarathi stared at her, colors shifting rapidly, orange to violet to green and back. The pheromones in the air changed, became less acrid, more confused. Zarathi blinked, a gesture involving 3 separate eyelid layers. "I consumed the kelp approximately 17 minutes ago." "The symptoms typically manifest between 15 and 20 minutes post-ingestion," Elsa said. She glanced at Kievan, who was watching with 3-eyed intensity. "Sir, with your permission I can bring an chelating agent. We keep it in medical supplies specifically for Zhatrakian guests. It will bind to the iron-60 and allow her system to process it safely. She should feel better within minutes." For a long moment, no one moved. Then Kievan's rumbling laugh filled the lounge. "By the shattered moons of valor, I like this human," he gestured with all 4 arms. "Bring the chelating agent, and bring whatever humans drink to celebrate courage." Elsa bowed and hurried away, her hands shaking now that the adrenaline was fatting. She just diagnosed a neurological condition in one of the galaxy's most dangerous beings, contradicted her in public, and somehow survived. 10 minutes later, she returned with the chelating agent, a violet liquid in a crystal vial, and a bottle of earth whiskey from her personal stash. Zarathi drank the agent without comment, and Elsa watched as her colors gradually stabilized into a calm blue. "You were correct," Zarathi said finally, her voice quieter now. "I was compromised. I apologize for my behavior." It was the first time anyone had heard Lady Zarathi apologize twice in a single evening. "I should have checked your order more carefully, my lady," Elsa said. "The fault was mine." "No." Zarathi's colors shifted to a thoughtful purple. "You recognized a pattern that I myself did not perceive. Zhatrakians pride ourselves on our cognitive superiority, yet I was undone by basic biochemistry while a human waitress diagnosed me in seconds. Tell me your name." "Elsa Chen, my lady." "Elsa Chen." Zarathi tested the syllables. "Your thesis, I wish to read it. Transmit the file to my private network." "Of course, my lady." Kievan poured the whiskey into 3 glasses, one for him, one for Zarathi, who could process ethanol safely, and one for Elsa. "Sit, human. Share a drink with those you've impressed." Sir, I'm on duty. I'm a warlord who's conquered systems. If I say you're on break, you're on break. His eyes gleamed with amusement. Besides, my wife wishes to speak with you, and when Zarathi wishes something, galaxies tend to comply. Elsa sat, feeling absurd in her service uniform between two of the most powerful beings in known space. Humans fascinate me, Zarathi said, her colors shifting to curious green. You're young, technologically primitive, fragile by any measure. Yet in the Consortium Wars, your species earned respect through unexpected tactics. Tell me, Elsa Chen, how did you come to study Za-Trachian neurochemistry? I grew up on Earth, Elsa said, sipping the whiskey carefully, in a city where 3 million humans lived alongside refugees from the Consortium conflicts. I had Za-Trachian neighbors. One of them, Ambassador Zatrix, used to have episodes. The doctors couldn't help because they didn't understand the biochemistry. I was just a kid, but I read everything I could find. I figured out she was allergic to atmospheric nitrogen ratios above Earth standard. After that, I was hooked. You studied for years to help one neighbor. Kevin shook his massive head. Humans, you barely live 2 centuries, yet you waste decades on altruism. Is it waste if it matters? Elsa met his eyes. Ambassador Zatrix went on to negotiate the Treaty of Proxima. How many lives did that save? Zaratha's laugh was like wind chimes. She has you there, husband. Perhaps we've underestimated this species. Perhaps, Kevin agreed, or perhaps this one is exceptional. They talked for an hour. Zarathi asked questions about human neurology, about Earth's ecosystems, about the philosophy that drove humans to explore despite being outmatched by every other spacefaring race. Kevin shared stories of battles and conquests, and Elsa found herself explaining human military history, how beings with no natural weapons or defenses had nonetheless become apex predators on their own world through cooperation and innovation. We have a proposal, Zarathi said finally. I require a scientific advisor, someone who thinks differently than I do, who can see patterns from a non-quantum perspective. My own people are brilliant, but we share cognitive structures. I need an outsider. You're offering me a job, Elsa blinked. I'm offering you a position in my household, Zarathi corrected. You would travel with us, study, learn, advise. I would teach you things about the universe your species won't discover for millennia. In return, you would provide your unique perspective. And before you refuse, Kevin added, know that the salary would make you wealthy by human standards. You'd have access to the finest laboratories, the most advanced technology. You'd see wonders your people dream of. Elsa looked at the whiskey in her glass, watching the amber liquid catch the light from the bioluminescent vines. 3 weeks ago, she'd been thrilled to get a waitressing job on a space station. Now, she was being offered a chance to work with one of the galaxy's greatest minds. There's a catch, she said carefully. There's always a catch. Zaratha's colors rippled with approval. Perceptive, yes. You would be bound to my service for 10 standard years. You could not return to human space during that time, and you would make enemies. Many beings hate my husband and by extension me. Your life would be in constant danger. But, Kevin rumbled, you would also have my protection, and I have never failed to protect what is mine. Elsa thought of her tiny apartment on the station, of her student loans, of the life of quiet desperation so many humans accepted as normal. Then she thought of the stars, of the mysteries waiting to be discovered, of the chance to make a real difference. I accept, she said, on one condition. Both aliens regarded her with surprise. No one dictated conditions to Warlord Kevin. Name it, Zarathi said. I want to establish a scholarship fund for human students who want to study xenobiology but can't afford it. Fund it from my salary. Make sure there are more humans like me out here, learning, understanding. We're new to this galaxy, but we're not going away. The more we understand each other, the better chance we have of not blowing each other up. Kevin laughed again, that deep rumble that shook the table. A human to the core. Fine, Your scholarship fund will be established. Zarathi. Agreed, the lady said, her colors a pleased gold. Welcome to our service, Elsa Chen. You begin tomorrow. They drank to seal the agreement, and Elsa felt the eyes of the entire lounge upon her. Tomorrow, she would begin a new life among the stars. Tonight, she was just a waitress who'd embarrassed a warlord's wife and lived to tell about it. As she stood to leave, Zarathi caught her arm with one gentle manipulator. You know, the lady said softly, I wasn't entirely compromised by the Iron 60. I exaggerated my reaction. Elsa froze. My lady. I wanted to see how you would respond, whether you would cower or think, whether you valued truth or safety. Zaratha's colors shifted to amused violet. You chose truth. That's why you're coming with us. The galaxy needs beings who speak truth to power, even when power could destroy them. I could have died, Elsa said. Yes, Zarathi agreed. But you didn't, because you trusted your knowledge and your courage. Remember that in the days ahead. You'll need both. Elsa walked back to her quarters in a daze, her resignation already submitted to the lounge management. Tomorrow, everything would change. She thought of all the humans back on Earth who believed they were inferior, who felt like the galaxy's newcomers would always be second-class citizens. She would prove them wrong, not through conquest or force, but through something more powerful, understanding. Because in the end, that was humanity's real gift, the stubborn belief that any problem could be solved if you studied it long enough, cared deeply enough, and refused to give up. The stars beckoned, and Elsa Chen, former waitress, current scientific advisor to a warlord and his brilliant wife, smiled and walked toward her future. End